What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the Head-to-Head Battles merch sale. It is 20% off for a limited time, and code What's Good 5 for 5% off, and to support the channel directly will make it even cheaper. I think they're already selling out of stuff like deck boxes, so you might want to be a little quicker on some items. It is limited to what is in stock. I do not believe that's on pre-orders. I love the Moochie design. I cannot stress this enough. I think it's one of the best in-community creator designs out there, period. The calm but chill with the bag glasses on Moki, who's already so mysterious. It just looks great. I will be using this as my personal mouse pad after my Metabot one wears out a little more. I just replaced my Overlord playmat. I know, great taste in anime over here at House of Champs, but other people do like the Moopreme. I like the Moochie more, and it's still a pretty good design, and if you can't choose between them, there's a playmat for both. If Moki's not your thing, they have tons of different cute stuff, waifu stuff throughout the site, so code What's Good 5 for 5% off, and to support the channel directly, again, will stack on top of the 20% off sale. Now get to the cards, John. Naturia has been extremely divisive within the community, and Sunflower was already getting bought out, but now it's bubbling up to new proportions. People just don't want to play tier 0, tier element the deck, and they're looking for other things to play, and Naturia Ishizu, so you're still playing Ishizu stuff, is exciting for some people, but the buyouts are going way too dang far for techs and things not necessarily played within the deck or one-ofs. Like, Horn Needle is interesting as a card, right? When you read it, you kind of mind blown. Oh my gosh, it does what? When your opponent special summons a monster, you contribute one face-up Naturia monster you control except this card to destroy the special summoned monster. You're still costing a card, having to use your setup and that kind of stuff, but people are going crazy to where they bought out the supers on this also. Oh my gosh, it can be played, you better buy that card out, is the knee-jerk reaction, and then people end up overpaying, and it's a bit ridiculous. There are other cards in the deck, of course, where the DT buyouts make a bit of sense if you want to go max rarity, but DT buyouts historically calm down over time, so I wouldn't be buying crazily into them. Again, a divisive deck. I don't know all that much on how it actually ends up working versus the metagame, but I've seen them call it overrated, and other people definitely have had their takes on this sucks within the Discord versus no, this is actually a pretty good deck, listen to me. And I feel like you do see that with decks like Exo Sisters, where even when it won, people said, well, that deck still sucks, and it was still a pretty good deck, but they're talking about in the context of the game. So I don't necessarily think that the deck sucks, but I don't think it's like the best choice to play within the metagame. We'll see how all these turn out, though. It's way too many buyouts at ridiculous prices, in my opinion, though, and I do think you'll see a correction in the market over time, but we'll have to wait and see, and also versus tournament results. Now, speaking of things that have mass results, you have the super rare Bystials, I think they were calling them on stream. I want to say Bisted, like Bystial, but maybe it's Bystial. Anyways, I'm a Yugi tuber. I'm going to mispronounce things. The Bystial Druid Swarm has continued to just skyrocket up, and now it's almost a $9 super rare, where you do have in Darkwing Blast the other Bystial, Magnamut. It's around $16, and this reminds me a lot about Dragon Rulers, where everyone was complaining about the $7 to $8 rares, and some of those eventually became $12. You also have Sunlight Wolf when it's meta being like $8. Things that are typically cheap and people expect to be cheap in certain rarities don't necessarily have things messing with their ratios to make them this price. Darkwing Blast, I haven't heard anything in terms of messed up ratios. Clumping is still a thing in products, but these are not short prints, and anybody who's telling you they are, they're not looking at mass case ratios and what's happening. It's like, oh, I opened a box, didn't see any, must be short. I opened 3 boxes, I only got so many, must be short. That's not really how pull ratios work. But when it comes to these cards, it makes a ton of sense on how they're starting the price up, because you're either using it in the top deck, using it to play against the top deck, and very few decks are choosing to ignore access to these cards. It's very, very few, I feel like, overall within the core of the metagame. So a lot of people are going, well, I gotta have these to compete, and they're going for it. And you can't really ignore their impact in the meta, and I feel like the Druid Swarm is an overgrab after everybody went for Magnamut, but at the same time, I do think it's deserving of around an $8 price point, and we'll see where it does go from here, as other value leeches out of the set, like remember Spellbound was 12, now it's headed down under 10, you see the other cards continue to come down, so you have that value displacement where certain cards were worth, you know, an amount, and they've come down, and other cards in the set end up starting to skyrocket and go up there. And even at the top end, you do see Fenrir, and you see Lubellion coming down a little bit at this point. It's more that people really respect having these as not only like their piece against the metagame, but also within it, right? Then Soul Drain, speaking of the metagame, is basically an Abyss Dweller in trap form, right? This card is going up for every single version. I believe even the Lard is headed towards like, yeah, $20 at this point. And this is for, you know, when you know you're going first, and then you still have to draw it. That's the problem with cards like these, but you still need your options within formats in order to beat decks, and people are going at this en masse. So every single version of this is going up $10 for the rare right now as it's on buyout mode. So be aware that these are worth a pretty chunk of change for something that is only a rare, tournament pack, super, and a astral pack, but that is a tournament pack. Anyways, terminology. We have the Sky Striker super rare Airspace Area 0 getting bought out, and so is the common out of the Megatons, because again, another card that just didn't get reprinted for Sky Strikers. So this only has 2 printings, and people are getting them just so that they can have the deck, and it is also going out on the market. A lot of cards are acting like that right now between the Sword Soul cores, the Striker cores, all thanks to Mavens. And that's a good thing, honestly, in terms of how many reprints Mavens did. You can't always get them all, but the ones left behind are going up. I had an interesting conversation about Lava Golem on Twitter today, and it is notable that the Speed Duel version is $7+, and every single version of this card is above $4, and it comes out of structured decks. You have Duelist Pack rares, but the Speed Duel version specifically is $7+ for the only available common, before you have a Tournament Pack Ultra towards the top. In fact, the Speed Duel common, funny enough, goes for more than the newer Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1 copy. Yeah, that set. The set that's just completely struggling to do anything. When it does come to this, though, that structure deck is over 2.5 years old and has Merrick on the front. I think I pointed out before that Merrick on the front of a structure deck tends to do pretty well, and in product in general. So when looking through all these copies and how many do exist, it's not the biggest, craziest surprise to see that there's demand for this in multi-formats. Also, Speed Duels have impressive giant cards that are getting a ton of attention. You have the Bubble Man most recently, the Ojama White that sold pretty darn high. The Speed Duel giant cards, I don't blame people for going after cards in this format if they are going for those kinds of things. Draco Sack, rank 7 goodness. It is also up in price and going pretty crazy. I called the super rare a penny stonk a while ago, then you get a max gold coming in hot after it. Still though, people do prefer having a holographic copy. I do still think this is a pretty good penny stock, considering you have the other versions just starting to go out on the market and crazy. Now, the secret rare proportionally always tends to go up higher on buyout mode due to the Dragon Ruler format people like to quote for the past play, but you don't see a lot of people playing Dragon Ruler format, and Edison's really past it when we're looking at past formats. If anything, Edison might be number 1 right now, even ahead of GOAT format in terms of what people prefer. So when we're looking at Dragon Ruler format as a reason for selling this, I don't think it's as popular as people lead on, but it still has a pretty core following. When it comes to the super rare, just having an easy access version, you're looking at 50 cents and a lower risk. Well, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know the future of card prices, reprints, what Konami will do. I think spending 50 cents versus into the already bought out secret rares, you're probably just better having a super rare copy than anything, especially since it's behind the gold letter rare. Battles of Legend pre-sales. I was right about something. Toons seem to be one of the most popular things targeted, and you do see Gamer's Choice is now out of the Toon cores, as well as TCG player pre-sales. The only reason I like to look at these isn't just to point and laugh, ha ha ha. It's when A, things start out cheaper than I thought they might over here, and B, to see the order of what sellers are stacking up to compare to what what other presellers do, there is a little bit to look in at, and I do see that Toon the BLS is up here with Flip Page ahead of stuff like Celine and Borreload Savage Dragon. So I do think that Gamer's Choice probably misstepped a little by putting this so much further down than the other cards. They did bring Savage down after my video to $10, but it is back up to $12. I'm guessing they're selling a lot. And Chaos Space sold out twice for them, and they've pushed it up, which is actually pretty close to the TCG player pricing for Chaos Space. So notably, there are things moving heavily for Gamer's Choice at this point. They're one of the only notable pre-sellers on an individual site, so they have a lot more traffic than they might usually, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Daily, Tier 0, the others aren't up yet. But things are cheaper than I thought they would be for Battles of Legend on TCG Player. While it's more expensive than Gamers, seeing, $44 access code talker this early, and seeing everything else 20 and under, it's a more reasonable approach, which means, to me, I think a lot of people are going to be Starlight digging when ripping open the set, and using the rest as kind of rebate fodder when doing their estimated value pulled. So what will the Starlights end up at? I could see access code talker being the number one chased after card at 400-ish. I think Exodia will be around 300 for the head and 80 to 100 for the limbs, and I don't know where the others will stack up, and we still need to wait to see if there are more inset cards like access code talker that get a Starlight, or if we just only have the 9 total Starlights that are there. One inset card and the rest being out of the set might be a little weird ratio-wise, but we'll have to wait and see for reveals, and I think a lot of sellers might be holding off their sales on Starlights until we do see everything that it is in this set. But when looking at this, it is lower than I thought it would be for TCG Player, which means a lot of these cards outside of Access Code Talker and maybe Toon BLS or the other Toon pieces, because people have been waiting a long time for that, might be coming down in price a little bit further versus pre-sales, and that is something to know. Also, the Evil Twin Kisi Kill is up towards 10, and I think it was pre-selling 5 over on Gamer's Choice. I think that's another one of the cards that have actually sold out for them. So Kisi Kill, I do think at 5 was probably underpriced, but we'll have to wait to see what it's actually stacking up at versus people tearing into the set for the Starlights, and how often that's going to happen. We still don't even know the ratio on the Starlights themselves. I would kind of guess around 1 per case, with so many different ones to chase after, but historically it's been 1 per every other case about, or even with special cases, I think it was like 1 per 1.5 case with past Battles of Legend, where you would see like the Astral and Starlights versus each other at 1 per 1.5 case in past battles. But again, this isn't a core set. We'll have to wait to see how it stacks up. That is all speculation. Thanks for watching today's Market Watch. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the conversation. Let me know what you think about battles, these crazy buyouts. Is Naturia overhyped, underhyped? I want to hear your take on it, because honestly, I haven't seen Naturia in action enough to really have an opinion on that. But at the same time, versus its representation and top cuts, I do think it's a little bit overhyped.